Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Album Town podcast. The goal of Album Town is to take a deeper look into the music we listen to every day, as well as highlight artists and albums outside of the mainstream. And we do this by picking one album per episode to listen to and discuss in depth. My name is David, and I am your host. I chose this topic for my podcast because I love listening to music. Of course, many people hold the same opinion, but I also love listening to albums in their entirety, often over and over again. As popular personal music listening habits have evolved from physical records, tapes, and CDs to digital collections, then to online streaming services, I feel like consuming albums in their entirety is much less common. Personal and curated playlists, along with algorithm based streaming radio, popular on services like Spotify and Apple Music, seem to be the primary methods for consuming music these days. While I have used and enjoyed these features myself, I always fall back to albums as my main method of listening. There is a narrative journey that good albums have, and you lose that when you break the album into parts. The regular cast of my show includes three of my friends, but today we'll be speaking with only one of the three, Catherine. I will be interviewing her as a sort of prologue to what the actual podcast will be. We will explore what it means to truly engage with music on a personal level, how she listens to and experiences music, and how her relationship with music has changed over her life. She seemed like a great person to interview because she possesses a deep connection to music and engages with it on an intensely personal level. She also consumes music heavily in the form of live performances, playlists, and streaming audio, as well as full albums for the artists that she really admires. Now, I do enjoy a good live show, but I primarily listen to music on my own time, so the contrast in habits makes for a good starting conversation, I think. I don't mean to make this podcast an example of how one should or needs to think about and consume music, just that it is the way I prefer and love to experience my music, and hopefully this inspires others to try it more often. Without further ado, let's get into the interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Album Town. I guess it's like a prologue podcast because it's not the real one yet, but it's like a sort of an introduction to what the podcast will be. So joining us today, we have my friend Catherine, who's joining us. She's very into music, feels music a lot. Um, Probably the person I think that's talked about music the most and like that I've known. So I felt like she was a good person to get for this part of the for this interview portion prologue. So it kind of sets up kind of the idea, like the approach to thinking about music, and at least one person's approach, which I think is should be interesting. Starting off, we'll go with like a sort of generic, easier question, kind of based on the off the desert island discs thing from England. If you were stranded on a deserted island and only had three albums to listen to while you were there, which three would you choose and why?
I would probably pick, I think I would go with Tech by Sigur Rós for sure. And I would probably go with um All My Demons Greeting Me as a Friend by Aurora for sure.
Good one.
And I don't know if you've heard Owl City's side project, Sky Sailing, but the album from that, he just did one album, but it was really, really good.
What would be like the reasoning? Like, what are you looking for in like those three to like provide you on the island?
Probably just it's a little morbid, but comfort in death. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
Assuming that I'm stranded out there with little hope of getting rescued, I would want something that could comfort me. So I think specifically those three albums have always been very uplifting and just comforting for me in like multiple times in my life. So absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah. I don't think I think it's possible you might get rescued, but you're definitely be stranded there for a while. So yeah. Yeah. That seems like some good
At least
choices.
I'm vibing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in terms of music, you seem to connect to it like very deeply. I think more so than at least what other people have like revealed to me or appear to me. I guess why do you feel like that's the case? And is the connection, some of you like books and movies as well, like is the connection
Yeah.
different from books and movies? Is it more intense or
I think it might be just slightly more intense for me, especially lately. But music has always been a constant in my life. I think regardless of whatever I'm feeling, music has always been a way for me to kind of introspect and connect with myself as well as with other people. I think I've used it as a tool often. Like I know we've discussed music before and like what it means to each other as well. I think there's a lot of honesty and like vulnerability, things that people are afraid to say on their own. Um, I know especially for me, like a lot of the music I listen to is kind of like listening to like a diary for me. I think it's a way for me to kind of communicate things that I feel like I struggle with saying. And yeah, I think it's honestly a way, it's a channel for me, I think, to form connection both with myself and other people. So,
that's cool. Yeah. And I feel like with, I mean, I guess I think similar to books, there's usually less people involved in the creation. So I think
mm,
I mean, a movie can feel personal in the story it's telling, but there's so many people are usually involved. I think
yeah,
books and music usually feel a little bit more like of a personal connection to the creator, I
yeah,
feel.
definitely.
Yeah. So when you're listening to a song or an album, what are you like paying attention to the most? And I'm guessing, yeah, I mean, from what I know about you, like you listen to music or an album a lot if you like it.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're like first listening to it, like what are you paying attention to? And like as you listen to it more and more, like do different things pop out to you more?
I think I'm a, I try to be more of an explorative listener, but I also lean towards habit at the same time. I tend to kind of cherry pick, I think, out of an artist's discography based on like maybe how I like their vocals or if the lyrics connect with me personally. I know we also talked about like listening to an album in its entirety versus like just listening to songs and kind of like hopping around.
Yeah.
And I feel like I do the latter a little bit more unless I'm a huge fan of like the artist. I think I mostly just kind of like ride the waves, kind of listen to it and see where it takes me. I think when I listen to music, I try to not even really try to, I think I just automatically like picture landscapes and environments that it kind of takes me to, as well as like whatever emotions tied to that for me personally. But yeah, I think it's primarily lyrics and just the way someone sings. Emotion forward is probably the best way to describe it. I listen to a lot of music. I think that has a lot of that leans a little bit more towards, I guess, like personal feelings someone might be grappling with, whether that's not feeling like enough or loss of some kind or yearning for something. Just really like kind of desperate, honestly, sounding
Yeah.
songs and lyrics. I think that resonates with me a lot because a lot of the time I think I feel really intensely about a lot of things and it can be kind of isolating to have that and then not feel like you can achieve that, if that makes sense, in your relationships and kind of like that gap of understanding and being frustrated with yourself for it and being frustrated with others for it. I think that that's something that like sticks out to me in general.
Okay. So it's kind of like helping you like work through a feeling sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Or sometimes just feel it. Like a lot of times, I can't really listen to like happy music if I'm sad. Like I'm not the type of person that wants to necessarily be cheered up.
Yeah.
If I'm feeling an emotion and like something else comes on, it's very jarring for me. It's very chaotic. And I feel like I need to kind of find something that can describe what's going on in my head and kind of just like feel it through the music, if that makes sense.
For
Music
sure.
is usually just like feeling like in that moment for me, I think. Yep.
Yeah, I do. similar. Like I tend to burrow deeper into the feeling. So if I'm like feeling sad or whatever, it'll usually be like a sadder movie or a sadder like album sort of
Mhm.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had mentioned like the importance of lyrics. So do you listen to much like instrumental music or music without lyrics? Because I personally do, but I'm not sure that you've talked too much about
Mm.
stuff like that.
I do. I definitely have before. I think, especially during like my high school days, I was kind of genre hopping a lot just to kind of figure out what I enjoyed when it came to music. And it was kind of just like slowly like opening my tastes, like broadening my perspective. I do like instrumental music. I would say maybe I don't listen to it as often just because I'm a more lyrics forward person. But I know like some of Sigur Rós stuff even like is instrumental. There's a band called Illuvium that has a song Prelude for Time Killers that was on loop for me for years as well. I think instrumentals definitely can have a similar effect on me. I just think sometimes like I need a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean the lyrics, yeah, for sure. They definitely add a lot, especially if they're, kind of connecting to the way that you're
Mm.
feeling at that moment. Yeah. So I guess you're talking about how like you've gone through different genres like through your life. Would you say that your tastes have changed a lot since well, I guess to maybe approach it a different way. I think you had told me that you hadn't always been like this like exposed to music, right? Kind of
Mm.
happened a little bit later in life. I guess what kind of stuff did you listen to before and like how did that like change kind of come about?
Honestly, I think that when I like hit high school, I started oddly like intentionally trying to find myself for lack of a better word. And for me that was through music. So I would I would like I said genre hop a lot more. I think growing up I was exposed to pretty good music and varied music as well, but I've always felt sort of like I had to be a certain way growing up, especially as a kid. You know, when you're under your parents and everything, obviously you have their influence and you care a little bit more about what your family thinks of you, things like that. And so I just think I was a different person and I would kind of just stick to one thing. And that was that I was very hesitant to explore in any avenue really. And I think when I hit high school that kind of changed. Honestly, I think when I was in high school, I had a more desire to like curate my tastes a little bit more. Like I'm just like this one thing. And for me at the time, that was indie music, which I still, of course, love. But I think I would kind of shun other genres sometimes because I was like, oh, look, I can't like that because this is the thing I like. And I limited myself a lot. And that slowly changed as like I went throughout high school where I was just, I got to a point where I was like, it didn't really matter. And we're multifaceted people. I think uh,
Yeah.
I listen to like I think a lot of times when I'm feeling a certain way, my moods kind of like swing like I'm sure anyone else does from time to time. So I'll go from listening to rock to listening to classical to listening to indie, sometimes even country, electronic music, just literally anything that I could get my hands on because I think for me, it's always been more about the lyrics. So seeing how different genres explore the same feeling has always been really interesting for me. And kind of seeing how people tackle that. It's just like it's a different perspective, which I really enjoy. So
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's nice to have some variety. And I think how you're talking about like how you like shunned maybe certain genres initially. I think a part of being like younger in general, like I think younger
mhm.
kids, like children often will like have very specific things they would want to eat and they don't want to try other things because it's gross. But as you grow up, you kind of develop more of a refined palate sort of thing. So
Yeah.
makes it easier to explore. I mean, I still haven't really gotten into country very much. Maybe eventually that'll
Mhm.
happen. That's been pretty stable, where I haven't really ever cared much for it. but maybe
Yeah.
one day. Yeah, I think the extent is like I can't even think of his name. Willie Nelson. I think that's like the only things I've listened
Yeah.
to that I've liked. So as far as music, like how do you listen to music? Like are you usually doing other things like multitasking sort of thing, or are there like artists or albums where you'll like lock down and like listen to the music and not do anything else and kind of like give all your attention to that?
Honestly, I think I tend to listen to music in a way to kind of almost cope with reality, if that makes sense. I I could listen to music pretty much at any time, doing anything, and it's not distracting for me. Like I know we had that conversation where you'd mentioned you'd like to kind of like sit with an album and not really be doing much else. I think my exception is probably that, like if it's a new album and I kind of want to get a feel for it, I'll try to do something either like really monotone that doesn't require a lot of my attention, or I'll sit with it. But I think music kind of helps me cope with a lot of things. So a lot of times when I am doing something, like I'm kind of on autopilot and like I'm in my own head a lot, essentially. So I think music for me is like very like it transports me a lot of the time. And it's always been like that for me. It's a very innate thing that I noticed even as a child. Like I'm sure you've seen like memes and jokes about like, kids like looking out the window and like pretending they're in a music video and like some things like that. I feel like I have always slash still do that, if that makes sense, where I kind of just like turn off externally and just fully immerse myself in music. I don't think it's something I really have to try out. It just happens, especially if the music's really good or it's an artist I connect with. I think, yeah, I just kind of live in that headspace of like whatever song or album I'm listening to at the time.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like it's harder for me to like in this situation, like we're talking about an album specifically. I'll do both where I'm
Mhm.
doing other things, listen to music, just get more exposure to it, but I definitely have to like set aside some time where I'm like specifically listening to that just because I feel like I need to focus more to kind of, I don't know, better digest it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Everyone, approaches these things a unique way, which is part of what's cool about it. So I think this one maybe is a question you didn't really care for as much, but I'll still ask it. If you could only choose one for the rest of your life, would you pick live music or on-demand music, and why?
I mean, it's a really good question. I think it's just hard for me because I'm really indecisive. I think there's a benefits to on-demand music, and I like personally, if I'm without my headphones and without music, I can function and would just prefer to have music. But that said, I am an avid concert goer, as you know, and I think the more I go to shows is the more I have to say like live music is unparalleled for me. I think there's a completely different feeling when you hear like a passion project live and you're kind of like watching them as they sing and play their instruments and they converse to the audience about what they're feeling at the time. It's a lot more intimate, it's a lot more personal. And I think it kind of forces you to be more in the moment than if you were listening to music on demand, like how we were just saying, you can clean, you can cook, you can work. But when you're at a concert, you're standing there, or you're sitting there and you're just kind of like paying attention to that. It's always been a pleasure for me to hear an artist like just completely let loose and be vulnerable with people. Like it's inspiring for sure.
Yeah. I think it also like enhances that personal connection because I mean, when you're listening to
Mhm.
an album on your headphones, like the person, probably who made it, like you can hear their voice and you can hear them playing guitar, but there's still like a bit of a disconnect as opposed to if you're like in person and you can like you're in the same room with the person who created the music. It kind of enhances that for sure.
Yeah, it's like less polished too, because I mean, you have takes when you're creating an album. I think you're very intentional with it. Like you take your time. It takes years for a lot of artists, and they're writing and they're rewriting. And I think when it's live, one of my favorite things actually about live music is like when there's a key change, and when they just kind of like let the emotion drive the song of whatever they're feeling at the time. Especially when it comes to like grief and loss and love and inadequacy and just exploring like those more vulnerable emotions. Like I love the voice cracks. I love the tears through the songs. I love the screaming because I think it sounds more real and more beautiful for me than just like perfect pitch.
Yeah. Awesome. That was a visceral response. Yeah.
Mm.
I like that. I think that about wraps it up. I think that's a really good answer. Good one to end on. Thank you very much for joining us, Catherine, and giving us some insight into the way you digest and look at music. It's I think it's always good to hear how different people approach things. It gives you, even if you don't agree with everything like they say, it helps you like kind of understand maybe even yourself, the way you approach it more. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. It was great having you on, and talk to you later. I just want to thank Catherine for being so generous with her time. Hopefully, y'all found this conversation as interesting as I did. To me, music inhabits this unique spot amongst the pantheon of art and entertainment. To create it, all you need is your voice or even just a stick in the trash can lid. Music came before painting or books or movies, and it possesses this powerful ability to easily spread across time, cultures, and language barriers. In the next podcast, we will focus on an album of Catherine's choosing, Melt by Not for Radio. Thank you for watching and hope to see you then.